What is my take on the Stop Killing Games initiative? I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. I think Ross is doing a really good job, and we absolutely should be able... There was a thing where... who was it that was against it? Was it Thor? He was like, oh, if you keep doing this, you know, you'll kill live service games forever. And I'm thinking... I'm already on board, mate. You don't need to sell it to me anymore. You've got my vote. This just seems like a little cherry on top. If this passes, there'll be no more live service games. Stop. You know, I can only be convinced so much. The idea, essentially, is... if a company are going to make a video game, many people are going to love that video game. And in the future, that company might not be able to maintain support for people to enjoy the video game. If the game requires a download, there may not be download servers for it. If the game requires connection to a server, there may not be servers hosted online for it. And the initiative is basically saying, make it possible to play these games once the companies have stopped providing an official way to play them. We're not asking for ownership of the games. We're not even asking for the ability to monetize them. It's not a case of, hey, you've finished with your game, now let me make money from it. It's a case of, right, you no longer want to pay the cost to maintain your game. That's fine. I would like to host a private server for it and allow my friends to play it, which is great. You think about Stop Killing Video Games. I've got a Sega Master System. Classic old original Sega Master System. If I plug that into a TV that can take it, put a cartridge in, I can play the game. I've got a PlayStation 1. You put a CD in, you can play the game. Purchasing those games did not give me copyright exclusive holder rights to them. It didn't make me the owner of them. What it did give me was the ability to play them for as long as I have the hardware and the software needed to play that game. The Stop Killing Games initiative is essentially saying, hey, once the company that make the game and owns the game and has made money off the game, once you stop supporting it, give support to the give the community the ability to support it themselves, which is fine. Like a personal example, Otherland. Have any of you seen the saga I did where I played the MMORPG Otherland all the way to the end? The end that existed there. I was only to play Otherland because I was able to download the files from Steam and there was a server being hosted. That game is now offline. Forever. You can't play that game anymore. You can't log onto the server, you can't get the files. Will it ever be playable again? Probably not. Because who owns the game? Well, it's kind of caught up in a legal battle between whether it's owned by the original developer, the host of the server, the person that wrote the books. It's an absolute legal nightmare. But the loser isn't the legal rights holder. The loser is the person who says, hey, I'd like to play Otherland. The loser is the person who says, hey, I'd like me and my friends to play WildStar. The loser is the person that says, hey, wouldn't it be cool to get a 5-person group together and try and run through Terra? The loser is the person that buys The Sims that requires an online download for it and then can't play it. Here's an interesting fact. I think it was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. It's one of the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater games. But I think it's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5. When you purchased the disc for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5, is that the correct one? The disc contained the first level of the game. And when you put the disc in, what it then did was download from a server the rest of the game. And the reason they did this was because they weren't able to get all of the data printed to the disk in time. They didn't have everything ready for the print date of the disk. So instead of delaying the game, they printed what they had on the disk, effectively the first level, and then they gave the disk the ability to connect to a server to download the rest of the game. That server is now offline, which means if you purchase, even secondhand, the disc of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5, you will get the first level and then nothing else. You can't download the rest of the levels. You can't download the game because the server that it will connect to is offline. Provided you've even got a disk drive. When I was lucky enough to get a PS5, I specifically bought the one with the disk drive because I very much value physical media. The Stop Killing Games initiative is basically saying, hey companies, we absolutely understand that you are not going to keep this service online forever. When you take it off, give us the ability to host it ourselves. Not monetize it, not own it, not take copyright from you, but at least host it. And hey, if you ever come back and want the official servers back on, we'll take all the private ones off. Not a problem. That's fine. Yeah. Like a game that needs a day one patch that's 40 gigabytes. That's not a patch, that's the rest of the game. So I very much agree with the Stop Killing Games initiative. I think, personally, from an artistic point of view, video games, when they have been created, should be able to be played for a long time. And now it's evolved into we only put on Epic Steam Hook. Yeah, pretty much. You download it from there. I mean, I've got Morrowind on disk. If I stick a Morrowind disc into a computer and install it, I get Morrowind. What happened with Warcraft 3, Reign of Chaos? Remember when they made Warcraft kind of Reforged? The upgraded, remastered version of Warcraft 3? And in doing so, they actually completely removed the ability to play the original version. Remember that? So if anyone's not sure about this, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, Warcraft 3 is a very good game. The expansion, what was the expansion called again? It was, the original was Reign of Chaos, and the expansion was it the Frozen Throne? Because that was what set up the whole kind of Arthur's storyline. Those games were great. I liked the graphics, I liked the style of them. When they brought out Warcraft 3 Reforged, they updated some of the I want to say upgraded, I want to say they updated some of the graphics and some of the gameplay. But they didn't just update it for the Reforged version. They went back and retroactively updated it for the original version as well. Which means if you connected to Battle.net at all and you had the original version of Warcraft 3, it would effectively forcefully update your game to look like the new version. Which means if you liked the old graphics and the old gameplay style and the old balance, and screw you, who cares? You're not allowed to do that anymore. The only way to get the game as it originally was is to own the original CD and to install it onto a computer that does not have connection to the internet, which I think is a shame. So the Stop Killing Games initiative is kind of a, hey, maybe if you're not gonna let me officially play your game, you could give me away. I mean, think about it with books. Imagine if you went to a library and purchased a book, or you went to a shop and purchased a book, or a library and borrowed a book, and then 3 or 4 years down the line, the publisher of said book stopped printing it. And what they then did was go around and collect every version of that book and take it away, saying, hey, you can't read this anymore because we're no longer making money actively off it. Imagine if a band released an album that you listened to, and then eventually they decided, you know what? We don't really want people listening to that album anymore, so they took it away from you. Now, if the band was hosting the album on an online hosting site and they were paying, the hosting fees, and you were paying the rights to access the album, god damn it, and you were paying the rights to access the album, and they said, hey, we're going to take the server offline, customers would rightfully say, hey, maybe we could just download the songs so we could always listen to them. And then the company went, nope. No, you can't do that. That's not allowed. Because the executives aren't making money off it anymore. If I had... There's a famous saying, if I had longer, I would have written a shorter letter. That's because if you want to write a concise, focused thing, it makes sense to work out what you're going to say in a concise and focused way. So my thoughts on the initiative right now are neither concise nor focused. It's more of a stream of thought, a stream of consciousness. So I'm sure I'll be saying things that many people will disagree with. I'll probably say things that I myself will disagree with when I go back and listen to this back. But in general, I think we should be able to find a way that we can access games even when their official servers go offline. I hate this game so much. If you paid for access, you must have access. Everything else is nonsensical. That's the argument as games as a service. Games as a service. Remember when they tried to do it with DVDs, when they had that thing where you could watch a DVD like 5 times and then it would implode? That was, I swear to God, that was a thing. There was a thing, there was an initiative for a while where they printed DVDs that had a built-in play limit on them. because the companies thought, hey, you're not buying the rights to this film, you're buying viewing rights 5 times, and that's it. And that didn't take off, because that does not serve anything other than corporate greed. And this whole, you can't play the game because the servers are offline, that's just corporate greed. That's all it is. There is nothing of any benefit for the gamer there. And I will very much be in favor of gamers, because I am one. You got old Dead Space game on CD after 3 installations. Yeah, there was a thing with install games as well. There were a couple of games that actually said, after you've installed this X number of times, you can no longer install it. Like, you had the data on the disc. It's a physical disc that said this disc may only be installed X amount of times. So, if you had a computer and it broke and you bought another one and then you borrowed another one and lent the game to a friend, they were like, nope, no, you've installed this too many times. Too many installs. You can't do that anymore. Tell me who this serves apart from corporate greed. Seriously. No one. It serves no one apart from corporate greed. That's literally it, and that's why I hate it. Anyone who complained that gamers no longer own the games they buy are okay with the game end of life. Yeah, I think that if a game has an end of life plan for its official support, that's okay. And then let us unofficially support it.